take ki runga, he take ki raro. Tēnei te take ka takato, he take nā wai, he take nā te pai o Party People. Ko Mihingarangi tēnei, e take mihi atu kia koutou katoa. Welcome to Party People, funded through the Public Interest Journalism Fund. Tonight, we're joined by the only MP in living memory who actually deserved a spot on the parliamentary rugby team. A former captain of the Māori All Blacks, turned captain of industry, turned National MP, turned iwi leader. In fact, this man is the Bay of Plenty's second most influential political mover and shaker after Shane Te Pou. Ko wai tēnei tangata, ko Paul Quinn, nau mai hara mai e hoa.
Kia ora.
No he koe, where are you from?
From, Ngāti Awa and also Ngāti Makino and then back down to Tūhoi.
That's all that counts.
Very heavy tūhoi on the panel here tonight. Well, tēnā kōrua, it's lovely to have you on board flying those flags. So, yeah, we were going to start with the polls, but I think we'll just go straight into hitting all the news bulletins for all the wrong reasons is National's newest MP, Sam Uffindell. He's admitted to a serious assault when he was 16 against a 13-year-old boy at school. He's apologised and he hoped it would be the end of it, but party leader Christopher Luxon said he wasn't told. It was handled by the senior party MP, Todd McClay, who said it wasn't his job to tell Luxon. I guess, Shane, will this series of events, hurt the party?
Yeah, I think it will. Look, I believe in redemption. I believe in second chances. But, that was quite a serious assault on a young boy. It was a pack assault, and he used the weapon. And I think there's a little bit of privilege in this, Good boy school, mum and dad come in, sort it out, and he goes to another school and just carries on with life. I think that's aspect. But the real political story is this. The National Party have a litany, basically, of white dudes that have acted inappropriately, have been selected as MPs and then found out they should have been scrupulous in terms of from a forensic perspective and in terms of finding out everything they know about this person who's likely to be an MP for life. And it certainly was McClay's responsibility to do the digging, find out the issues and to form as MP. So look, this is incompetence at the best, maybe a cover-up. I don't know. I think this story's got a lot of legs.
Is there a problem with the vetting process, do you think, Paul?
Well, I think the starting point with National is that the local people select them. And so what tends to happen is that they call for nominations. The local branch sets up a selection committee, and that local branch is actually responsible for making those appointments. Now, head office does get involved in terms of what they call make-up, and that relates to how big your membership is. I suspect that in this seat, there weren't very many people appointed by head office, and what they tend to do is that local selection group have the responsibility for putting up 3 candidates, and it's their job to vet. I'm not quite sure whether head office was involved. As part of that vetting process, there seems to be some suggestion in the news through the day that head office did know about this, but I haven't heard that. What I do know is that the selections per se are actually made by the local membership, and so that the decision comes back in many ways to the local people.
Should he have been selected, do you think?
Well, that's not for me to say. What he should have done was it should have been everyone should have been made aware of the track record, because in politics, if there's something underneath the blanket, people find out.
Well, what does it mean for his political ambition?
Well, I think the story has legs. We've just found out today that he was actually suspended from the second sort of wealthy school. The apology in itself was interesting.
Was he suspended or asked to leave?
no, he's expelled from King's, and as I understand it, today he's admitted that he was suspended from his next school, St. Paul's. I think the story has got a lot of legs. Whether he survives it, I don't know, but the leader has said that he has faith in him, and once you've said that, you've got to be sure of that position. And the other thing is that there are no statutory limitations on a criminal act, and it doesn't take a victim to lay the charges. So there's a lot that could eventuate out of this.
Do we believe in retribution?
Oh, no, I believe in redemption. I do believe in redemption, but, part of the redemption process is to be open and honest about it. And when you're standing for a very important role, Member of Parliament, I think your constituents that are going to elect you have the right to know the detail around this. And, when you admit to tell people, particularly when you are asked a very direct question, what is the biggest regret in your life? And he didn't mention this. He said, being away from Aotearoa, well, not Aotearoa, he wouldn't say Aotearoa, but being away from New Zealand too long. He had the opportunity, and he should have said his biggest regret, this is what occurred. And then the people of Tauranga would have been able to make an informed decision.
You know the National Party voters better than most of us. Today online I've kind of read a bit, and it seems women are not very forgiving, for this, because we've all got young boys, and we think, gee, do you think it's going to hurt that cohort of the National Party support?
I think that that cohort will certainly think about it, and they may not even vote. I suspect that if there was, let's just say, a group of National Party women or centre-right inclined women voters, it may be that they don't vote. I would be surprised if they, in retribution, sort of voted for a centre-left candidate. They may not just choose to vote. So I think that that's where, if it is to have some impact, that's where I see it having impact.
Well, let's backtrack a little bit, because the Kenta One News poll last night had National enact forming a government in its latest results, and they really should have been going to town on these results all day, but they haven't been. What do you make of it, Shane?
Good news for the centre-right, but a lot of it is swapping. They're down 4%, and their leader will not be happy with that. He'll be happy on the macro scene that they on these numbers they could rule by 2. Still all within the margin of error. The Prime Minister and the Labour Party will be deeply concerned, because the trend lines are there, and they're getting deeper and deeper.
Nonetheless, they can form a government based on this poll result. What are they doing right?
Well, I think that people are you've got a cost of living crisis, you've got a health crisis, you've got a crime crisis. There's just crises all over the place. And with all due respects, they're not being handled at all well. You've only got to take crime in Auckland. Every day, every morning, there's another car smash. There's kids 12, 13. There's an education crisis. 40%. 40% of kids
reacting
they're not going to school.
Yeah.
So I think that basically there are crises, and people are thinking they're not being well handled at all well.
Just to cover the rest of that poll, it seems, the ACT Party's on 11%. They'll be happy with that. What are they doing right?
They've got whether you agree with them or not, they've got a very clear, consistent message. They are probably the benefactor of the fact that National's gone down 4%, swapping between the left and the right. So that's what they're doing right. Clear, consistent message, and they're sticking to their knitting.
And, the smaller parties like Hannah Tamaki's Vision New Zealand, the New Conservatives top, I think, they're all on one. They're all talking about making a party together. Do you think they could hold it together?
That'll be a rebirth of alliance. They may well come together and stand for one election, but in the end they'll all blow up. Because they'll all want to be the boss.
Yeah.
And eventually, they could put a facade on for one election round,
Yeah.
But it'll blow up if it ever did.
They say a day in politics is a long time, so a week's a really long time. But I want to talk about the other poll, the Roy Morgan poll, which actually with the Māori Party had them up at 4%. And, you know, they could have formed a three-way coalition and, formed a government there. So the Māori Party, what are they doing right?
That's a fascinating result, because what that result shows that they've got traction not just amongst Māori amongst Pākehā. And remember, the Roy Morgan poll was the most accurate poll at the last election. I just think that Rawiri particularly has got a high profile. Again, consistent message. He's seen as a bit of a rebel, and people like rebels. So I think that's what they're doing right. Whether they can hold that line, I'm not sure.
Just before we move on, I just want to talk about preferred PM, because Jacinda Ardern has dropped to 30%. Christopher Luxon on 22%, David Seymour on 5%, Winston finds 2%. What do you both make of those results?
I think there's more concern for the Prime Minister. I mean, the simple reality is, if you go back through history, the leader of the opposition is always behind the Prime Minister. 2 or 3 months after an election, if they're changed, they swap around. And the there's always an uplift once you become Prime Minister, regardless. And so, and a leader of opposition floats between 20 and 30%. They never get much above that until they become Prime Minister. And I think the real concern would be for the Prime Minister in the terms of the trend that's drifting backwards.
Is it too much international news and not enough national news?
No, I just think that I think that the issues around how tough the economy is, etc., is having an impact on the Prime Minister. But the numbers for the leader of the opposition will be concerning, because they're going backwards, and we saw the abortion as tantamount to murder. We saw him dumping on New Zealand Inc. in the UK, and the lack of agility to sort of reposition himself. When the government is doing it so tough, and your personal numbers and your party numbers are going backwards, that's got to be of concern.
I want to talk about the new policy. The National Party conferences took place at the weekend, obviously, and Christopher Luxon and Louise Upston delivered a new policy which promises to end, as they said, free rides for young people or young beneficiaries. The policy promises to give unemployed young people coaches some financial planning, $1,000 I think it is, and pathways into employment. But I wonder, Paul, is it any different to what we have now with mana and mahi?
Well, the National Party policy is focused differently in that the mana and mahi is, it's not working. The job seeker continues to go up. It's supposed to be aimed at job seeker, and also it's not dealing with people that have been on the job seeker for over a year.
I think the numbers are something like 1,900 who may have been on the job seeker. I think it's had 5,000 through mana and mahi so far. Yeah,
but the job seeker numbers are continuing to rise, and so it's not actually addressing the long-term problem, and partly it's because of the lack of mentoring. These people deal with officials, and the aim of this program is to actually establish tutors and sponsors in the private sector, and that's a critical change in that program.
Do you back it?
Yeah. It's I've seen experience like, in fact, there was a program on TV last night with a group in Hawke's Bay of Top Line. I don't know whether you saw it. That's the sort of thing that this program is trying to establish. NZMA have various courses. They are dealing with troubled youth, but giving them a range of introductories through various courses, but with a specific tutor and guidance counsellor as part of that process, and that's where the current systems tend to fail down. It's really creating trust between these youth and the counsellor.
Yeah.
It's similar to mana mahi, and the difference, I guess, is you get a coach on the side, and mana mahi you get put into a business.
Oh no, the biggest difference, of course, is sanctions.
Yeah.
That
I was going to talk about the
you
next.
don't, if you don't engage, they'll take
Yeah.
you off the benefit. Hey, look, I think there are a lot of delivery areas that Labor needs to really be held to account. Employment is not one of them. We've got some of the lowest employment numbers ever. We've got some of the highest participatory rates in terms of Māori employment in terms of full-time work. So I think the stats are pretty good, and we've had 5,000 engagements through mana and Māori. I agree with all of that coaching is important, that one-on-one mentoring is important, but when you go back to the future and you bring sanctions in, what that does is that alienates people.
Yeah, I mean, is it a good idea to introduce sanctions for young people, post-COVID, 2 years post-COVID?
Well, I think that where there's a hand up, there has to be consequences and responsibilities, and that's part of the issue, is teaching people that in getting the assistance, it comes with responsibilities, and they may be small at the start of the process because the sort of people you're dealing with. I may well be dealing, for instance, particularly with mental health issues. And so one needs to be caring and considerate, but at the same time, one has to... Is that
caring and considerate, though, when you've got young people who are suffering anxiety, probably
Yes.
more anxiety than ever before post-COVID, because the whole country feels anxious.
Yes.
And then you're, threatening to take away their
Yeah, but
benefit.
don't forget you've got a coach there that is going to work with you through some of these issues and give you and point you in directions where you can get support as part of that process. That's why a coach is critical to the whole program.
How important are coaches that look like you and reflect you, though?
Important, but look, there's a bigger issue here. Is our rangatahi haven't had a free ride. They're the ones that are disengaged. It's folks like me that have had the free ride. I own a rental home. I don't pay
Free
any
education?
tax.
You've had free
Yeah, I went to
education?
university for free.
Got a decent house
I'm not
for
that far off. I'm not that far off superannuation. I own a rental home. I don't pay any tax on my capital gain. Under National, I'm going to get another $18,000. Well, not quite $16,000 tax cut, and for each of my rental homes, I'm going to get $4,000 in my
Shane
back
got a
pockets.
point?
It's
Shane got
not
a
the
point?
rangatahi that are having the free
In terms
ride,
of free rides?
Well, I don't think so. But if he thinks he gets a free ride, then be generous and donate it to the church or Salvation Army.
Let's talk about tax, because the Deputy Leader, Nicola Willis, promises to scrap all the taxes introduced by Labor, including the Auckland Regional fuel tax, 39% top tax rate, and the proposed extension to the Bright Line test. And they said they'll do that without, eating into the education or the health dollar. Do the numbers add up?
Yeah. I mean, the levy
where
on
will it come from?
the levy on the local 11 cents or something.
Yeah.
I mean, not much, most of it's sitting in the bank. They're not even spending it. So why should I be paying 11 cents a litre for petrol that's going into the bank, Auckland City Council bank, and it's not even being spent?
What are your thoughts on the tax announcement?
Well, of course they don't add up, and it's just basic economics. If you have a drawdown on your income, you're able to spend less. And also, you remember there was a sort of a debate or misunderstanding between the leader and the deputy leader, the Minister of Finance, in terms of whether or not health and education will be inflation adjusted. So, it was. There's an old saying, show us the money. Give us the details in terms of how you're going to reduce income and keep expenditure going.
The National Party has a
We
new
won't be sending it overseas to the dead people.
The new president for the National Party, and her name is Sylvia Woods. She told the party that the election victory was possible with a united and disciplined caucus, sufficient funds and a great campaign leadership, and ground game. What does she bring to the party?
Leadership. I think she brings a much more engaging and sympathetic and emotional interpersonal skills, which I think are very important. And she brings excellent knowledge, around the, dare I say it, picking good candidates. And so hopefully going forward, the systems will be made to think. But I think the main skill set that she brings will be the organisation and interpersonal skills and communication.
She also said that the National Party is going to look to stand in the Māori seats, and they're definitely going to stand a candidate in Tāmaki Makaurau, which is currently held by Pini Hinari. Who do you think they'll stand?
I don't know. I thought it might be Paul, but he said no.
He's already told us it's not him.
Yeah, he said it's not.
Any idea, Paul?
Yeah.
No, but I don't know who the final candidate will be, but there have been a number of high quality candidates expressed much interest
in all the seats.
In Tāmaki Makaurau.
Yeah.
Well, if they want, they're probably showing interest in Tāmaki Makaurau because they'll want a pathway through the list because they ain't going to get in Tāmaki Makaurau. I can tell you that now.
Where are you standing?
Pardon? No, politics isn't what. No, I observe, I comment.
The National Party's kind of flip-flopped on the Māori seats, because Judith Collins told us there were going to be great candidates for the Māori seats and then none stood. Formerly, Don Brash has argued that they should all just be removed. Does this indicate, or does this indicate a change for the National Party's relationship with Māori, do you think?
Well, I don't think so. I mean, in my view, the National Party has actually done more for Māori than Labour. I go back to, to the 1940s with Irirangi. I come through with Jim Bolger doing that first settlement in terms of Tainui, and then again with Doug Graham in terms of Ngāi Tahu. You bring through Chris Finlayson. In my view, National Party has been way ahead of Labour in the outputs it has delivered to Māori. So
given that, because we've talked about that a lot in here, the what National has done in terms of the treaty settlement process, but now the kind of anti-co-governance, and is that off the brand?
Oh well, they're different things. I mean, putting legislation in place to utilise Māori land, such as the 438 Trust or Part 24 scheme, as Irirangi did, is not the same thing as co-governance. It's providing tools to enable one to utilise one's own assets in a way that would facilitate that process.
The Waikato River Trust, that's got to be co-governance.
Yeah, well, and also they sacked Ngāta. National sacked Ngāta, so that's just a historical fact. No, but if you have a look at the three major settlements, a core component of that was co-governance. Te Urewera, the Waikato River Trust, and the waterways of Ngāi Tahu. So they were a key component of that. And but I do want to say that I think that there probably is a evening of balance, because certainly things went skewer under Judith Collins, and I think that Luxon is trying to drag them a bit more to the centre in terms of Māori issues.
Do you think they'll find some candidates for the other Māori seats, or do you think they'll get one in Tāmaki?
Well, no, I think they will. I think people will be interested, but I think they'll mainly be, if they're very keen on getting into Parliament, they'll probably use that as a pathway to the list, because there's probably going to be at least 10 to 15 more list MPs at the next election, whether they win, lose or draw, and so there will be a pathway. I haven't had heard a lot of kōrero about names, but I'm not in that circle.
So one of the things I have heard from the National Party is that it's about the party vote this time round. And so standing because, sometimes the National Party gets about 10% in the Māori seats. So perhaps standing candidates is going to raise the profile in those seats. Would that be a tactic?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the reasons for doing it, is because by standing a candidate, ultimately it's whoever gets the most party votes wins the election, and part of the strategy is to make sure that there's someone standing in every electorate, including the Māori seats.
Are those party votes in the Māori seats underestimated?
I think they are. Underestimated, and also they do fluctuate. And you're quite right, Paul, that if you do attend hui, you will get a greater level of respect, and you will probably get more votes if you don't have a candidate. And the other thing is that you get less funding if you're not standing in all the seats. I just think it's a wise move from the National Party, and let's see if they get a high calibre, whatever that means, of Māori candidates.
It's going to be an interesting, actually, 12 hours overnight, if not 24 hours. Do you think National will stay intact?
Sorry?
With their Tauranga candidate, do you think he'll stay?
I have no reason to believe otherwise. Chris Luxon was, I think, on the radio confirming that he's staying. Yeah.
Your thoughts?
Well, he said that he bashed one kid with 3 others. He also today he said that he was a bully, and there are other people out there that he hurts. If more stories come out, I think it will undermine him. I think that his tenureship in terms of being the Member of Parliament of Tauranga could be a short one. I think this story has legs.
It's been wonderful having you, Paul, joining Party People. What are you looking for? What should we be looking out for in politics this week?
Well, I think that clearly the issue around the Tauranga MP is, see where that goes. I'm not quite sure.
It's up there.
Well, I don't think. I think Shane is hoping that it'll have grain legs. I'm not quite sure that it'll be.
That's politics, isn't
it? Yeah, it'll be like he says. I think a couple of press conferences today. National are hopeful that they will have put to bed anything by fronting up, and because that's the only way to deal with it. You've got to front up, and he's done that. And then we'll turn to the real issues of the crises, the proliferation crises that follow us. We're currently in.
Will our Defence Minister get home?
I think he'll get home, and I think he's bringing the Under-Secretary of Defence or something with him. Big day in Parliament tomorrow, the repeal of the 3 strikes laws. 3 strikes laws will be gone, as will Coach Foster.
Do you think? Hey, we've got a former Māori. Yes,
do you think he'll survive?
We were going to ask this at the very beginning around the All Blacks, because you're the only one who's qualified to make a decision. How are we going to go next in the next game?
Well, I think they've got a few more problems than just the coach, and I think that starts with some critical selections for Saturday. I think that. Personally, I think that Sam Kane might be best sitting in the grandstand, but unfortunately, there's not that much extra choice. No. I mean, they've probably got the best players in New Zealand at the moment.
It's brutal, and you heard it here on Party People. Don't forget to watch us on via RNZ's YouTube account, Facebook pages, and Apple Podcasts. Tēnā rawa tū kōrua, nohoro maira.
Kia ora mihi. Here comes the news.